part 2 of the lecture on North Africa and Southwest Asia. There are 2 sects or sections of Islam, like there are 2 or 3 major sections of Christianity. Christianity, you have Protestants, and you have Catholics, and you have Orthodox also, and you have other smaller divisions. But in Islam, you have 2 major sections. You have Sunni, which is larger. They believed that the guy that Muhammad had selected to follow him was the next proper leader of Islam. And so they followed him and his teachings, and on further down. They're mainly located in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria. Most of your Muslims will be Sunni. They are a little more liberal in general. Most American Muslims are also Sunni. The Shiites are in a smaller grouping, smaller amount. They believe that Muhammad's cousin, the closest family kin to him, was the next leader of Islam. And they believe in these imams, these prophet leaders who come through, and they're waiting on the 12th imam to come and appear. And different leaders from time to time come and say, "I'm the 12th imam." Like sometimes, like guys come and say, "I am Jesus Christ," but then they do something stupid. And these are typically more orthodox. They go by the book, literally by what it says in the writings of the Quran. Quick, easy way to remember the difference between the two. The Sunnis are large. 90% of Muslims are Sunnis. The sun is big. So Sunnis are the bigger of the two. The Shiites are much smaller. They're small like a pile of Shiite. It's funny, I know, sorry. But that's the way I remember which group is what. Just an easy memory crutch. You see from this map here, if you can, hopefully, that Iran is in the maroon, dark maroon, the lighter maroon, Azerbaijan and Iraq. And so those are your particularly heavy Shiite groups, especially Iran. Iran is predominantly Shiite. Iraq's a little bit different because it's split, but you see like North Africa, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Indonesia, Bangladesh, they are particularly Sunni. There have been a lot of conflicts in and around the Islamic fringe, and this map needs to be updated actually. But you can kind of see that there have been a lot of people that have been opposed to Islam, and Islam has opposed a lot of people. But if I were to make a map of Christians fighting against Christians, it would just be the same. But we typically see this in our brains of Islams are all warlike. And they're not all warlike. It's just that the loudest among them, the ones that fight the most, we can't keep them quiet. It's like on TV, when you watch TV and a tornado hits a trailer park, they're going to find the lady and the sponge rollers to talk and say, "Well, the tornado sounded like a freight train." Same kind of deal. We can't hide the most ignorant among us when a tornado strikes. It's the ones who are the most willing to fight are the ones that we usually see. But most Muslims are very peaceful people. The holiest site in Islam is the Kaaba. It's this black box here that's believed to hold a rock that Adam and Eve actually lived near or on. And typically the people who go to this site will circle around it 7 times and they'll pray to it. And wherever you are in the world, you face toward this Kaaba. There are a couple of groups, I'm not really going to go through these too much, that you can see there that are Islamic militants. I guess you could call them that loosely, even though they just live in the Islamic world, but they really don't hold too much to Islamic faith, because Islamic faith preaches peace, and these people aren't peaceful. The 5 quick beliefs of Islam are belief in Allah, or God, 5 prayers daily. You get your rug out and you pray. Ramadan, which is a month of fasting from sun up to sundown. You don't eat a thing unless you're elderly, sick, or pregnant, or a small child. Alms, giving of like a tithe, and a Hajj, a trip to Mecca, which is the holy city there, to the Kaaba. Now, the history of the region, there are a lot of old civilizations, such as Egypt, Israel, the Sumerians. You can see them all there. And other civilizations expanded into the region, particularly the Roman Empire and later the Ottoman Empire, which led to an expansion of Islam throughout the region. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War I, there was a power vacuum, and the British, the French, the Italians, and other groups were quick to seize power in the region, making these countries colonies. But after 20 years of ruling, 30 years of ruling, they were granted their independence right after World War II. You can kind of see this is a map that geographers like to use to show diffusion, which is one of your 5 themes of geography. You can see how over time Islam started in Mecca and Medina, the orange area here, and then slowly over time it moved out into this lighter orange area, it's almost yellowish area, then into the green areas, and finally even into France. That's right, purple areas, which are the non-Islamic kingdoms, but Islam spread into these regions. And there were several very famous fights over this time period. So in a period of about 120 years, Islam went from being in one city to being over a very large swath of area. But keep in mind that the area of North Africa and Southwest Asia is not just Islamic Arabs. There are Arabs, but there are also Iranians, or Persians, as they're called. Kurds are a group of people who live in northern Iraq and southern Turkey. There are Turks. There are Israelis. This guy right here is an Israeli soldier. That's what they look like. They look just like you and me. Just people. Now, to go through these countries real quick here, we have Morocco, which has very close ties to Spain because it's located right next to Spain. It also owns Western Sahara, but there's a lot of conflict about what is Western Sahara. Is it an independent country? Is it just a territory? Is it a state? And Western Sahara doesn't even know what they really are. They grow oranges and olives. The famous city in Morocco is Casablanca, and there was a movie called Casablanca. They also grow dates, like the fruit dates, which aren't very tasty to me. Different types of peppers. They do a lot of fishing, and they're quite liberal in Morocco. The women have jobs and live normal lives just like the men. Mauritania, which is down below here, is a developing democracy. Got its independence in the 1960s and is just now coming about as an independent state of importance. It does have a little bitty coastline. I don't know why I wrote coast there. Algeria is the biggest of the countries in Africa. It is oil rich. It's very close to France and has a lot of French ties. And they speak French because France, for a time, owned Algeria. And they've had a civil war going on because you've had government people versus Islamists. This is in Morocco. You see what it looks like. There's a lot of brown there just because of, well, that's the soil they deal with, and that's the territories. That's the dirt that they use to build their materials. In Tunisia, which is up at the very top, it's very close to Italy, and a lot of Tunisians end up moving to Italy to find better jobs. Tunisia is very liberal. They have some oil, but they also produce olive oil from olives. Libya had for a long time the leader Muammar Gaddafi, which I'll get to in a second. And they were synonymous with terrorism for a while, but I'm not going to go down that avenue. There's a long dispute about Libya and terrorism. Gaddafi is a little bit of a weird guy because the United Nations is a meeting of all the countries of the world. They come together in New York City and they discuss for 15 minutes what's going on in their country and how the United Nations can help. In 2009, Gaddafi gave a 90-minute speech. He demanded for Africa to have a seat on the United Nations Security Council. He wanted a trial for the mass murderers in Iraq, George Bush and Dick Cheney. Defended the Taliban and said that they were doing great work. He considered swine flu to be a weapon of mass destruction. He suggested an investigation into the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy. He asked for the United Nations to be moved to Libya. He wanted Israel and Palestine to become one country. He blamed the Security Council for a lot of problems of the world. He tore up a UN charter copy in front of the people, and he praised Obama as a son of Africa, which the Republicans had a field day with that. He also wrote a letter to President Obama during the time when Gaddafi was being chased down. And he said, we've been hurt morally, more morally than physically, because of what has happened against us in both deeds and words by you. Despite all, that you will always remain our son, no matter what happens. We pray that you will continue to be president of the USA. We endeavor and hope that you will gain victory in the new election campaign. You are a man who has enough courage to annul a wrong and mistaken action. I'm sure that you will be able to shoulder the responsibility for that. The funny thing is, Gaddafi died not too long after he wrote this at the hands of his own people.